All right, our next speaker and final speaker is Franklin Ruff. Mr. Ruff, sound check.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. And do you have the timer pinned, Joanne?
I do.
All righty. So before you get started, I just want to make sure everyone is muted and video off, except for the timer and Mr. Ruff. So please give the contestants their adequate due to give their speech. So our seventh and final speaker for this morning is Mr. Franklin Ruff. The point is, please welcome Mr. Franklin Ruff.
A young lady was really excited, and she went up to her boyfriend to tell her that she had news that she wanted to share with him. So she started to share this story. And after several minutes of this story, the boyfriend is wondering, okay, but what is she so excited about? I still don't know. So this story goes on for several more minutes, and after a while, the boyfriend, he looks into his girlfriend's eyes, and he says, honey, would you get to the point? Now, I am no relationship expert, but I'm pretty sure that looking into the eyes of your significant other and saying, would you get to the point, is not healthy for your relationship. In another instance, a manager was introducing a new initiative to his team, and he believed in this initiative. He thought that it was good for the company and it would be great for his team. And he had all of the things to prove it. He had the charts, he had the graphs, he had the facts, and he had it all laid out in front of them. Some of them got it, some not so much. Well, then the vice president of the company came in, and his name was Coach, well, his nickname, and they called him Coach because he walked like a coach, he talked like a coach, and he was a motivator, and he wanted people to know, I'm excited about this new initiative, and he wanted them to be excited, and some of them got excited, and finally he looked over at the manager and he said, are you excited? And the manager says, yeah, I'm excited. He said, no, are you excited? And the manager said, yeah, I'm excited. But you could tell he wasn't that excited. So after the meeting, the vice president calls the manager up and he says, I need you to be honest with me. How do you feel about this new initiative? The man says, oh, I feel that it's good. It's going to be good for the company and it will be great for my team. The vice president says, okay, but how do you feel about this initiative? The manager takes a long sigh and says, I'm excited. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, when we look at these two scenarios, they have two things in common. The first thing is that both the manager and the boyfriend used a communication style that is analytical and direct. That means when you're communicating with them, they want only the relevant facts. They also want you to get from the beginning of the conversation to the point that you're trying to make as quickly as possible. Now, because of that, they can sometimes appear to be impatient. Actually, sometimes they're being impatient. The second thing that both of these individuals, the boyfriend and the manager, have in common is that they are both the same person. Me. Yes, it's true that at some point in my life, I looked into the eyes of my girlfriend, who became my fiance, who is now my wife of 22 years, and I said, can you get to the point? Now, I only did it once. I have never done it again. And had you seen the look on her face when I did it, you would understand why I only did it once and why even now, as I talk about it, I have a little bit of fear. What's the point? The point is that we communicate differently. You could see that in my communication with the vice president. What did he ask me? He said, how do you feel? What did I tell him? I said, this is what I think. Because in my way of communication, what I think is more important than how I feel. The fact is that when it comes to communication, what you're trying to do is you have a communicator who's trying to send a message to a receiver. And we have all sorts of filters that we have to get through. You have to get through ethnic and racial and cultural filters. You have to get through language filters. You have to get through gender filters. And you have to get through filters of ideology. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing you can do about the filters. But what you can do is you can choose to adjust your communication just a little bit so that you're better understood and so that that person is more comfortable with your way of communicating. Now, I'm not going to brag, but I was a pretty good team manager. And the reason that that was able to happen is because I took the time to get to know each and every one of my team members. I figured out what their communication style was, what they were comfortable with, and I adjusted my communication just a little bit so that they better understood me and were more comfortable. But guess what else happened? They got to know me and my communication style, and they adjusted their communications just a little bit so that I was more comfortable with it. It was a give and take. Now, what happens is you have some people, they're going to stand firmly on their mountain and they're going to say, no, this is the way I communicate and you just have to deal with it. And okay, but understand that person will never be an effective communicator because they aren't willing to make those adjustments to be better understood and to make a person feel more comfortable. Let's be honest. We are in a time when there are so many things that divide us. We are divided by borders. We are divided by language. We are divided by culture, ethnicity, and race. And we're divided by our political ideologies. And at this time of pandemic, we're physically divided. Would it be good just to do a little something to help us to better understand each other, to better come together? Is it too much to ask to make that small adjustment so that we can build community? Isn't it a good thing to adjust just a little bit in order for us to be able to come together? Because when it comes to communication, community, unity, understanding each other, isn't that the point? Mr. Contest Chair.